Good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure to welcome everyone to the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Bee Branch Creek Greenway. Colleagues from the City Council with us today are at-large Council Member Rick Jones, at-large Council Member David Resnick, First Ward Council Member Kevin Lynch, Second Ward Council Member Luis Del Toro, Third Ward Council Member Joyce Connors, and Fourth Ward Council Member Jake Rios. Today we celebrate the completion of the Upper Bee Branch Creek restoration phase of the $219 million Bee Branch Creek Watershed Flood Mitigation Project, which will mitigate devastating flash flooding, improve water quality, stimulate investment, and enhance quality of life within the watershed area. The creation of the Bee Branch Creek Greenway you see today is one of the 12 phases of the overall watershed project, which includes detention basins, impervious surface reduction through green alleys, storm sewer improvements, floodgate replacement, the Bee Branch Healthy Homes Resiliency Program, and more. This massive public works project, which began in 2015, is unique in the country for cities of our size. While all project phases work in concert and are critical to the overall function of the project, the restoration of the Upper Bee Branch Creek and the creation of this linear park is likely the most impactful phase, and at over $60 million, represents the largest portion of the overall investment. The need for this project goes back many decades, but many of us can point specifically back to May of 1999, when many Dubuque residents living in the Bee Branch watershed were waiting out a tornado warning in their basement, when heavy rains produced flash flooding in our downtown and flooded hundreds of basements. As Dubuque resident Mike Hillard said in May of 20th of 1999 edition of the Telegraph Herald, it was evacuate the tornado shelter or drown. Our freezer was just bobbing. And resident Faith Kramer, as the water came up, we could hear everything banging around down there and glass breaking. We understand that many residents throughout Dubuque on occasion deal with flooded basements, and in some cases, we must deal with stormwater stretching across the street from curb to curb. But nowhere else in the city of Dubuque has basement flooding reached to ceilings, endangering the lives of our fellow residents. Heavy rains came again in 2002, 2004, 2008, 2010, and most recently in July of 2011. Who can forget that storm of July 2011 that dumped 14 inches of rain on Dubuque in less than 24 hours? And since 1999, this area has suffered through flooding events like that, which have resulted in 6 presidential disaster declarations. Imagine, if you can, the anxiety that watershed residents, property owners, and business owners have experienced every time weather forecasts have warned of significant rainfall. Trying to get to sleep, not knowing if you will wake to a flooded basement or flooded vehicle and other property damage. Our journey to this event today began 20 years ago this month, when the City Council established funding to develop a master plan identifying the improvements necessary to provide a safe and effective storm draining system. The creation of the plan was commissioned in 1999 and became known as the Drainage Basin Master Plan. In 2001, it was adopted by the City Council. Major infrastructure projects were recommended to eliminate the risk of flood damage and included the beautiful facility in which we are gathered today. In August of 2002, the Dubuque City Council formed a Bee Branch Citizen Advisory Committee to work on a creek alignment study with engineering consulting firms to determine the location and preliminary design of a means to channel water out of the North End and Washington Street neighborhoods. That citizen committee represented the needs and views of impacted residents as the community sought a solution to the flooding problem. The Citizen Committee considered two potential solutions, an open waterway or an underground sewer. To help them evaluate the solutions, they established 6 criteria. They were in order of importance. 1, preservation of local businesses and services. 2, minimization of property acquisitions. 3, affordability. 4, preservation of neighborhood access and connectivity. 5, minimization of health and safety risks. And 6, impacts to quality of life and the environment. After several committee, public, and neighborhood meetings, the committee's alignment study was concluded in November of 2004. Following its presentation at the City Council work session, the City Council adopted the alignment recommended by the Citizen Advisory Commission to create an open channel by daylighting the Bee Branch Creek. In 2008 and 2009, public workshops were held to gather citizen input on landscape design for the project, essential to the aesthetics of the neighborhood. As plans were developed, funding options were explored. We quickly realized we were facing a major challenge. There were no federal funding programs for stormwater infrastructure. Another citizen committee examined the possibilities for local funding and recommended the creation of a stormwater utility with a stormwater fee based on a property's impervious surface. This project was one of the first of its kind to remove funding silos and then braid funding streams and permitting processes. Thanks to the creativity and hard work of local elected officials and city staff, especially Assistant City Manager Terry Goodman, and through the strength of our relationships with our state and federal agencies, elected officials, and their staffs, I'm pleased to reiterate that the City of Dubuque has received $160 million in grants to help fund the $219 million Watershed project. This Bee Branch Watershed Flood Mitigation Project is fully funded from multiple sources, including financial assistance from the state of Iowa and federal government, private donations, debt, and funds allocated from our local stormwater utility. The end result of years of listening to our residents and business owners, thoughtful planning and research, along with innovative funding strategies, is the Bee Branch Watershed Flood Mitigation Project, a comprehensive approach to reduce the volume of stormwater, slow the rate of stormwater through the upper watershed, and increase the safe conveyance of stormwater through this flood-prone area. Today is a very special day for our entire community, but especially for our North End and Washington neighborhoods, most of which are part of the city's 3rd Ward. Please join me in welcoming our first speaker today and my council colleague, 3rd Ward City Council Member JOYCE Connors. JOYCE.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming out on this very hot day. I want to address my remarks really to the citizens of Ward 3 and also the businesses because they were all impacted along the way. The mayor explained to you what the problems were some years ago, and we knew as a city that we needed to do something. But you know, it's one thing to know you need to do something, and it's another than to start all the planning and this all started shortly before I got on the city council 16 years ago. It's been a long, long journey for all of us to get to this point today. But the citizens stuck with us. They gave us input. One example is if you notice the bridges that go over on both sides here. I remember an evening in Audubon School in their gym with a lot of the neighbors who were giving their input on how they wanted things to look. So thank you for that. I'm very proud of the people of this area. And as I wind down my career on City Council by the end of this year, I just want to say it's really been an honor to represent all of you. But guess what? There's more good news. And this is good news here, but the other good news is just today we were informed that Dubuque has been awarded $508,000 in interior grant for development of the Comiskey Park. So that'll make the folks happy there. And there are other big plans to revitalize the Central Avenue corridor here in town. You'll hear a little bit more about that with our last speaker, so don't be going and leaving early because then you'll miss that. So stay tuned and stay involved. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Joyce, for your years of service on the City Council, your unwavering investment of time and energy supporting our entire community's growth and expansion, its planning and crucial partnerships, and significantly, your tireless advocacy for the Third Ward. You've listened to citizens well and made decisions over the years that have helped to produce an incredibly productive period in Dubuque's history. This project being our most significant, and we thank you for that. Our next speaker is AUDREY MOREY, a longtime North End neighborhood resident who was a member of the original Bee Branch Citizen Advisory Committee at the beginning of the project and a member of the Bee Branch Citizen Representative Committee the last 2 years. AUDREY?
Hello and good afternoon. The Mayor took away a few of the things I would have said, but thank you for that. I can shorten it up.
Get this done. You can reiterate it.
Thank you for that. I can shorten this up a little bit. But yes, I got involved in 2003 with the Bee Branch Citizens Advisory Committee. And I, as you know, already heard about the floods of 1999 and the 2011. Those were the two floods that impacted my home the most. And I sustained heavy losses of losing furnace, water heater, sump pump, personal items. But when you hear that, you think about my story's not unique because so many other neighbors and residents lived with exactly that same impact. And so this Bee Branch restoration project is very personal to me. To me, it represents a safer and a better life. I talked to a neighbor recently, and when we were talking, we were discussing about how the prediction that evening was for thunderstorms and heavy rains. And he looked at me and he said, I remember when I had to worry, and now I don't. And to me, that speaks volumes about the success of this project. I would like to just thank a few. There are so many. I'll try to just shorten it up here. First of all, how about the construction crews and those laborers who brought to life this beautiful project? City staff, so many, so involved and did a great job. Mayor Buell, the City Council, they were unwavering in their support. Thank you so much. And we were blessed with state and federal contributions. But speaking of blessings, how about our own state senator, Pam Yoakum, and her colleague, Rob Hogue, who were so instrumental and helped make this funding happen. So in closing, I just ask you to look around and join me to be thankful and proud of this Bee Branch Waterway, Greenway, and its breathtaking view. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey, for volunteering and being an engaged citizen and for being a resource for your friends and your neighbors. And speaking of good neighbors, it's my pleasure to introduce someone who needs no introduction and who happens to be a Watershed resident. Dubuque State Senator and the first woman to serve as president of the Iowa Senate, Pam Njokum.
And now we can all say, let it rain. I too remember all too many times when it would rain and I would jump out of my bed and run down to the basement to see if I was getting flooded. And I don't have to worry about that anymore. You know, it takes a village, and Audrey did a great job of thanking so many people who were involved in making this happen. We have been working on this for 20 years, and finally, it has exceeded all expectations. It is now not just something to mitigate flooding, but it is recreational, it is educational, and it is going to be a legacy in this end of town. I've always said if we're going to do this, do it in a way that it is going to encourage more investment in these old German neighborhoods, because this is old Dubuque, and we all ought to be proud of it. Audrey mentioned Senator Rob Hogue, so briefly, back in 2009, after Cedar Rapids and many other communities in our state went underwater from flooding, the Senate formed a special committee to try and address flood mitigation throughout the state of Iowa. We knew then that we could not afford, the state or local governments or the federal government, to continue to rebuild community after floods every year. And so as a result of that, Senator Hogue was able to come up with some ideas that we were able to sell our colleagues in the House, in the Senate, and of course then Governor Culver signed it into law. But it was the sales tax TIF that the city of Dubuque was able to access and get about $98 million from the state of Iowa to help us pay for this beautiful flood mitigation project. So many thanks to our city officials and to all those who helped build it. Living on the corner of 24th and Jackson, I can tell you I have watched all the laborers moving dirt and stone and you name it like crazy people the last few days trying to get everything ready for today. So many thanks to everyone, and go North End, it takes a village.
Thank you, Pam, for your endless and tireless efforts on behalf of the community and Iowa. We're grateful for your important voice at the Capitol, along with Representatives Abby Finkenauer and Chuck Eisenhart. And we're also pleased to host State Senator Rob Hogue, author of the flood mitigation legislation that you just talked about. Our next speaker has been a member of the City of Dubuque Engineering Department for over 40 years. Gus Zahoyas, our city engineer, has played a key role in many major infrastructure projects over those years, but I believe this one is a particular source of pride for Gus and his staff. Gus?
Good afternoon. Thank you all for gathering to celebrate this beautiful facility. The Bee Branch project is a major component of the overall Bee Branch Watershed Mitigation Project, but it does not signal the end of the overall project, nor will we see its full benefits until all phases are complete. But with each element completed, the risk of flooding is incrementally reduced. And we are very pleased how the system performed during last week's storm. Each of the 80 green alleys soaked up stormwater. The Carter Road and the 32nd Street Detention Basin held back millions of gallons of water. And the Bee Branch Creek Greenway worked as designed, providing the critical capacity to accept stormwater, filling up shortly after the rainfall and then gradually draining within hours after the storm. This functionality prevents the flash flooding of our streets and flooded basements that we have experienced so many times in the past. We are anxious to move forward on future phases of the overall project, including the construction of the culverts under the railroad tracks, as well as increasing the capacity of storm sewers that drain into the Greenway. Something this special does not happen overnight, nor without visionary leadership and dedicated public servants working together toward common goals. Most of all, it does not happen without the support of the community. To me, this is an example of the best in government. It was done to help the citizens, especially those who were powerless, to effect the change required to address the ongoing flooding. This project was developed for and by our Dubuque citizens, with direct input from those who were impacted by the flooding, who had to move away for the project. Thanks to many who donated their time and talents serving on the Stormwater Utility Advisory Committee, the Bee Branch Citizen Advisory Committee. I also want to echo the thanks to all project partners already mentioned today, especially City Manager Mike Van Milligan. I call him the Vince Lombardi of city managers. Thank you, Mike, for providing the necessary day-to-day coaching required to overcome obstacles and pushing us all to do our best work. And Mayor Buell and the City Council, along with past City Council members, I thank you sincerely for support and appreciation of your efforts over the years. The City Council was called on to make some tough, sometimes unpopular choices to keep the project moving forward, and now it is a reality. Speaking for someone who has overcome and even performed some of these tasks over the years, the project has taken countless, minuscule, sometimes tedious efforts that most might not see or appreciate. The effort has been its own reward. I trust that all the city staff, contractors, especially Ports and Construction and Tricon Construction, the contractors on this phase, the consultants, Strand Associates, and IAW, who have played a key role, take great pride in knowing that no matter how big or how small their contribution, they help make this facility a reality. Thank you to all my colleagues from other city departments for their invaluable contributions. Thank you all. Most of all, I'd like to thank my staff. While some were fortunate to work directly on this development, others took on additional work and pitched in to free others to do the work on this project. Engineering Darren Murin was an invaluable asset, not only overseeing management and implementation, but also writing grants and focusing the last 18 years of his career making sure that the Drainage Master Plan became a reality. Thank you, Darren. Thank you, Project Manager Steve Sampson Brown, for your dedication to this project. Many thanks to engineering assistants Tom Freund and Chris Lyons, who spent many hours on this site assuring construction was built according to plans and on target. And engineering John Deans, who managed the Green Alley program. We constructed over 81 alleys the last 3 or 4 years. Know that this beautiful facility did not happen without their contributions of each and every one of them. Thank you, city engineering staff. In my years with the engineering department, I have met with hundreds of citizens who are trying to deal with stormwater and flooding issues. The beauty that I see in this project is the property damage it will prevent and the neighborhood health and vitality it will spark for hundreds of area residents of our entire community as we benefit from the Bee Branch Greenway. Thank you.
Thank you, Gus, and thank you to your incredible staff and all our intelligent, detail-focused city staff who have been involved in this project. I too want to single out Darren Murin for special recognition. He is truly the MVP for this project. And Darren, on behalf of the City Council and this community, thank you for your dedication and commitment to this historic project. Clearly, this project would not have been remotely possible without the financial support from the federal and state governments. A city of Dubuque's size simply does not have the resources to undertake a project of this magnitude. We're grateful to those who helped us to identify and secure the grants and other funding that enabled us to make this investment in the safety of our community. Jeff Robichaud is the Acting Director of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency Region 7's Water, Wetlands, and Pesticide Division, and joins us today from Kansas City. Jeff?
Now, I'm a Seattle native, so I was prepared to stand in the rain. Spent part of my life doing that. Thank you for inviting us here today. It always feels awkward to bask in the glow of all of the hard work of you here in the audience, knowing that we feel like we just had a very small part of this. I extend thanks from our regional administrator, who I guarantee would rather be here than Washington, D.C. today, which is where he is. But I was ecstatic to find out I was going to get to come and talk with you guys. It's been about 15 years since I've been back to Dubuque, so I spent some time going around my office chatting with people just to find out a little more. And what I found was we've got a cube farm like most places, and people were gophering up, oh, I wanted to tell you something about Dubuque. You got to go visit this. You got to go see this. So know that in our office in Region 7 in Kansas City, you guys are really well thought of in terms of the work that you're doing and the exciting stuff that's going on here. And I'm not going to be able to visit all the stuff that folks told me to get to. And we got here early so we could drive around a little bit. Some of my colleagues have been out here many times, but this is my first time seeing some of this, and I don't have enough superlatives for the activity that we saw and what this actually looks like. It's fantastic. I'm a bit of a history buff, and we went and ate lunch at a little local sandwich shop, and as we were eating, we flipped around, and there was a map of Dubuque from 1889, and I didn't see any urban streams on it. Not a shock. We took most of our urban streams back in the days and put them underground. And one of my passions is when we can see streams being daylighted, brought to the surface that haven't been seen in dozens, decades, hundreds of years in some places, and turn those back into assets for the community. In our region and at EPA, we've been very excited about our Urban Waters program, which really is about connecting people back with waters like this. And pulling on the community to identify what type of asset that might be and how it's going to be used. They're fantastic assets for redevelopment, economic development in cities, and from what I've seen, this is fantastic. I'm looking forward to walking around and looking at it later. And I mentioned our small part. I mean, obviously it's some money. We all wish we had more resources, obviously, to share with folks. But from our Brownfields program and our State Revolving Fund program, which we partner with the IDNR on, these types of investments are fantastic, and this type of work helps us out because, as you know, we're always under the microscope, and it's projects like these that we can point to and tell taxpayers, this is a fantastic use of resources. This is something the community wanted. This is putting money back into the community, and it's going to be an asset for generations to come. So I thank you. It makes my job easier to talk about these types of projects, and it makes it real easy when I get in other communities and I can say, well, give Dubuque a call, talk to them about something because they've been working on this, they've done this, and they've succeeded. So thank you. All of you had a part in this today. Your dedication is fantastic, and this is the type of partnerships that we, makes my life a lot easier and makes me love to come to work. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for making the trip to Dubuque, and we hope that you'll share our message of gratitude with your colleagues. At the state level, the Iowa Department of Natural Resources provided significant support to the Bee Branch project. Through the State Revolving Loan Fund, or SRF program, the DNR's Iowa Environmental Commission authorized the city to reallocate $9.4 million that was to be paid in interest on the loan associated with the Water and Resource Recovery Center upgrade project to instead be used to construct more than 70 green alleys in the Bee Branch watershed. We're joined today by Bill M., Director of the Water Resources for the Iowa DNR.
Mayor Buell and City Council people, Coach Lombardi, excuse me, Assistant City Manager Van Milligan, and Assistant City Manager Terry, where she went, but anyway, and Dubuque City staff and to all the good people here of Dubuque. I bring greetings from Director Chuck Gipp who couldn't be here today. But he wanted me to personally congratulate each of you on this great accomplishment here with your work on Upper Bee Branch Creek restoration. Without a doubt, it's been a long, long journey for you, and it reminds me of a quote: "Perseverance is the hard work you do after you get tired of the hard work you already did." The city of Dubuque has persevered over many years and put hard work of addressing a serious problem and envisioning a better future, of digging into new ideas and reaching out to the community, and of bringing partners on board, and always tackling the day-to-day challenges of a project this size and moving ahead to fulfill that shared vision. I have to say it's been very gratifying for us at the DNR to work alongside Dubuque city leaders and engineering staff to complete a project that everyone should be very proud of. Often cities look to stormwater problems and immediately conclude we need a bigger pipe so we can move the water faster. That probably was how Bee Branch Creek came to be buried in the stormwater pipe to begin with over 100 years ago. When Dubuque started to work on the solutions to flooding that devastated the neighborhoods time after time, city officials could have just chosen a bigger pipe and faster speed. Unfortunately, that approach solves some problems, but creates many others. Instead, Dubuque leaders were open to other ideas that considered a wider array of benefits for water quality, natural habitat, green spaces, and community betterment. Dubuque's approach doesn't fight nature. It creates a system that allows people to preserve, use, and enjoy natural resources for generations to come. Cities that live next to rivers are coming to look at water differently, not as a problem, but as a resource. And Dubuque has been able to stay ahead of that curve in valuing the Mississippi River and all it brings to the region. Now the Bee Branch Creek restoration continues that effort. Dubuque is investing in water quality, and DNR and the Iowa Finance Authority, through the State Revolving Loan Fund, are pleased to offer financial and technical assistance to help with that investment. One more quote, and it's one that might seem a little overused, but it actually is just right for this community today. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Congratulations.
Thank you, Bill. The Iowa Finance Authority is another key partner at the state level for many of the projects that have been key to Dubuque's long-term success. Also through SRF, the Iowa Finance Authority authorized the city to reallocate $1.4 million that was to be paid in interest on the loan associated with the Upper Bee Branch Creek restoration to make improvements in the Catfish Creek watershed to protect the water quality of the Catfish Creek and prevent soil erosion. This is another example of innovative policies that enable cities to make critical improvements. We're pleased to have Lori Berry, Community Development Director for the Iowa Finance Authority, with us today. Lori?
I want to thank the City of Dubuque for inviting the Iowa Finance Authority to participate in this ceremony. Terry Goodman and I recently attended a conference where the theme was One Water. And the whole idea was we need to stop compartmentalizing our water concerns. When dealing with issues regarding water, we tend to focus on the problem at hand. Maybe it's stormwater, maybe it's wastewater, maybe it's water for recreation or natural habitat. And we need to recognize that when we look at problems for water, we need to recognize all of these aspects and take them into account when trying to undertake our water projects. So as I was sitting there listening to the presentations, I realized that, as usual, Iowa was way ahead of the rest of the country. I know of no community that represents this notion of one water better than Dubuque. In this Bee Branch project, Dubuque not only solved their flooding problem, but at the same time used green infrastructure to innovatively deal with stormwater, created recreational amenities, increased natural habitat, and generated educational opportunities. The State Revolving Fund and the Iowa Finance Authority are proud to be a partner in this project. The sponsor project earlier was mentioned, and what wasn't mentioned was that Dubuque was our first water resource restoration sponsor project. And they graciously were our guinea pig to make sure that we knew what we were doing with these projects. And it was a huge success because that $9.4 million that was able to help construct those 81 green alleys in this area. When I looked the other day, the SRF has provided about $50 million in funds for this project, and it was money well spent. Thank you again for inviting us to participate in this event, and the SRF is always ready to loan the City of Dubuque more money to finance your water projects.
No announcement today, though. Well, thank you, Lori. I wasn't prepared to ask you for more today, but in December of 2013, the Bee Branch project was awarded $98.5 million from the Iowa Flood Mitigation Board in the form of state sales tax increment financing to be spread over 20 years. This is the largest amount ever awarded to the City of Dubuque. It enabled the city to implement our comprehensive flood mitigation plan much sooner than previously anticipated and at a lower cost to Dubuque residents and businesses. This award constitutes almost 62% of the $160 million secured for this project. We're very pleased to have Iowa Flood Mitigation Board Chair and Director of Iowa Homeland Security, Mark Schoten, with us today. Mark?
Thank you, Mayor Butte. Very good to be here, and I want to send my greetings on behalf of Governor Reynolds, Lieutenant Governor Gregg. I'm certainly pleased to be here to celebrate the opening of the Bee Branch Creek Greenway. As you all know, our state's bordered by two big rivers. We have the Mississippi over here, the Missouri over there, and we have a lot of watersheds in between that are prone to flooding. In fact, the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, has paid to the state of Iowa over the last 10 years $2.3 billion for flood damages and mitigation efforts. They have covered all kinds of projects, and one of them has been a series of projects for the City of Dubuque, particularly beginning in 1999. In fact, the City of Dubuque, as the mayor has mentioned, has had 6 presidential disasters. That is a big deal, and I think is symptomatic and highlights the issues that the city has had with floods and the need to mitigate those floods. And so it's the flooding that has occurred that's provided the genesis for why we're here today to celebrate the Bee Branch Greenway. Really, the City of Dubuque has taken leadership in the whole area of flood mitigation, but particularly starting with this project in 1999. The Flood Mitigation Board, as indicated, has given $98 million to be paid over 20 years to the project beginning in 2014. Has to also be mentioned that the City of Dubuque has contributed 2 very fine members of the Flood Mitigation Board, Ron HERRIG, who's here today, and Arnie Honkamp, who was with the board from the very beginning. Arnie was a very good man and contributed significantly to the work that the board has done, as has Ron. The fact of the matter is these projects are beautiful, but they also save citizens a lot of pain, and they save a lot of money. I talked with your local emergency manager, Tom Berger, earlier today, and he said that the Bee Branch improvements clearly mitigated the effects of last week's rain. In fact, he said that what was about 3 or 4 inches of rain would have probably been 3 to 4 feet of rain before these improvements went into effect. A pretty big difference. And so it's quantifying the benefits of projects like this that we do at Homeland Security Emergency Management. We're working with the Iowa Flood Center to put a dollar value on the type of savings that are achieved by projects of this nature. And though our work is just beginning, we have taken a look at the 2 federally declared disasters of last year in August and September. Up in northwest Iowa, maybe $50 million worth of disaster damages. We looked at avoided losses for work that have done on mitigation projects similar to the one that was done here, that is being done here. And the avoided loss to date, given our initial estimates, are $144 million in one season, two disasters. And I really trust this Bee Branch project will show similar avoided losses once the Flood Center and our office and others really takes a close look at it. So not only is the project beautiful, it's saving people from the pain and suffering they go through during these disasters, but it's going to save the taxpayers a lot of money. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of it today.
The Iowa Flood Mitigation Board is composed of 4 members from the public, 5 members from state agencies, as well as 4 ex officio members from the Iowa General Assembly. Dubuque was very fortunate to be represented on the board by the late Arnie Honkamp, truly one of Dubuque's great community leaders and a tireless supporter of so many local organizations. Arnie was a public member of the Iowa Flood Mitigation Board at the time of his sudden passing and was critical in our success in securing the $98.5 million award. This project is another example of Arnie's impact on Dubuque. Arnie left big shoes to fill on the Flood Mitigation Board, but Dubuque and Iowa were fortunate to have Ron HERRIG accept that challenge, and he is here with us today. Ron? Ooh, copious notes. He's not going to read all that.
In case you're wondering, this 5-inch 3-ring binder is not my speech. But I will come back to it later. I too would like to thank everybody who made this happen. And that would include the Iowa Legislature, Pam Yoakum, of course, and Chuck Eisenhardt, who represent this area, the City Council members, the City Manager, Mike Van Milligan, and his staff, and who had the vision to make this happen. I'd like to mention specifically Terry Goodman, Darren Muehling, and Kristen Hill. This 5-inch binder is what they put together. When I was appointed by the governor to be on this board, Terry called me and she said, we have a book for you, an application for you. And so I went down to meet her, and she brought this out, and I'm thinking, what the heck is going on? But this is, everything that's in here is what they put together to make this application happen, and for Dubuque to get the $98.5 million. And I've got to mention Mark Schouten. Mark is our chairman, and he had done a tremendous job clarifying each application that came in from all over the state of Iowa. He does such a good job of clarifying everything that's in every application. You know, I remember running around up in this area when I was a teen, and it sure did not look like this. My wife and I would drive up to Buddy's Clubhouse and have dinner, and we would look at everything, and we were amazed. And my thinking is, what has God wrought? I mean, this is unbelievable. You know, these people that live down in this area, as Audrey mentioned, every time it rained, and Pam too, every time it rained, they would go to their basement, and they were concerned about whether they would be getting water in. They can now feel safe. Anyway, as being in the insurance business, I knew what that was about, because every time we got a heavy rain, our phones would ring off the hook. Our furnace has been inundated. Our water heater is destroyed. Our personal property is gone. And we, of course, had to sympathize with them and tell them that, you know what, you have to have flood insurance to have that type of stuff covered. But it was a mess. But I think they can all rest easier today. So once again, I'd like to thank everybody for having made this project happen.
Take your book with you, Ron. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, Ron, for your support of this project and for your service to our state on the Flood Mitigation Board. No Dubuque ribbon cutting ceremony would be complete without the Dubuque Area Chamber of Commerce ambassadors. And here to speak on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce is past chair of the Chamber Board, Dick Lonsbach. Dick.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the over 1,300 business members of the Dubuque Area Chamber of Commerce, I'm just here to congratulate everybody on the federal, state, and local level, and especially the construction crews and construction companies that were down here to do this beautiful job. Obviously, this affects a lot of businesses and impacts businesses in the area. But really what we've heard today is that it's really about people. And I was just so touched by the stories of the local residents down here and what it really means to them. And I think that's just awesome. And so this is just another example of a neat project that makes Dubuque the best place to live, work, and play. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dick, and thank you to the Chamber ambassadors for joining us here today. As the Bee Branch Creek restoration work began, and over the past 2 years as it was being constructed, the city occasionally heard from residents and community stakeholders who asked how they could support or be involved with this legacy project. Gary DOLPHIN, the Dubuque icon who needs no introduction, is here to talk about America's River 3. Gary?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm fond of yelling touchdown Iowa, but today I want to yell touchdown Dubuque. Touchdown Dubuque. Einstein said one time, I don't worry about the future because it gets here fast enough. Well, Albert, not in this case. The future couldn't get here quick enough for the north side and this Bee Branch Creek and Greenway project. So, Mayor, thank you. Good afternoon, and it's great to be here. It's a great day for all of us and a great day for the city of Dubuque. The Bee Branch Creek and Greenway represents a tremendous public improvement for the north end. Most importantly, it provides flood protection, as you know, for hundreds of homes and businesses, and beatifies our most historic neighborhoods like this. So I'm only too proud and happy to announce today that on August 1st, which is right around the corner, we will kick off America's River 3 Friend-Raiser campaign. I said friend-raiser, not fundraiser. This is a campaign that will provide all of you with an opportunity to be a part of an incredible project. Seemingly, I volunteer for a lot of things, and I couldn't wait to jump on board for this one. And neither could my co-chairs, Norma Denlinger, who is an absolute saint, and hardworking Sue Halfkamar. Thank you. We are going to invite you, we're going to invite past and present Dubuquers. You mentioned Dubuquers all over the country that know about our great city and used to live here and hopefully will one day return to join us in this friend-raising campaign by contributing to naming a bench, a brick paver, a bike rack, a tree. I know full well what a great bench looks like. I sat on one my entire baseball and basketball career. So you can't have too comfortable of a bench. And they're going to be lining up and down this beautiful waterway, this causeway, over the next few years until we get it full and we get everybody's name on it. And the proceeds of your gift will allow you to put your name, your business's name, your family tree name on a bench, on a tree, on a bike rack, or on a brick. And the proceeds will help, maybe most importantly, for the ongoing maintenance of what we now call the Bee Branch Creek and Greenway. This actually started about 6 years ago, 2011, when America's River 3 asked our usual outstanding businesses to step up to the plate and contribute some startup monies. And today I want to publicly thank the Dubuque Racing Association, Dubuque County, U.S. Bank, Dubuque Bank and Trust, Dupaco Community Credit Union, Premier Bank, American Trust and Savings Bank, Norma Denlinger, and the Kurt Chipperfield family for these startup monies. These gifts allowed us to leverage a $2 million grant to the project through Vision Iowa and ensured its ongoing success. So How about a hand for all those early contributors? And before I sit down, I'd like to introduce other members of the America's River Friend-Raising Committee. Please stand when I read your names, if you can. State Senator Pam Yocum, Councilwoman Joyce Connors, County Treasurer Eric Stearman, Ernestine Moss, Chip Murray, Peg Hudson, Lauren Shasinski, Dan White, Ann Kramer, and representatives from the neighborhood associations, including Gary Carner, Sandra Plumley, and AUDREY MOREY. How about a hand for our hardworking committee? Eric Stearman proudly proclaimed at a recent Friend-Raiser Committee meeting, "Isn't everyone from the North End?" I'm proud, Eric, to call myself a North Ender today. Whether we were born here or not, today we are North Enders and we celebrate with all who have contributed to make this day possible. So stay tuned. In the coming weeks and months, you'll learn more about the opportunity to be a part of the Bee Branch through the America's Friend-Raiser campaign. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Well, thank you, Gary, and please extend our collective appreciation to your committee co-chairs, Norma Denlinger, and I want to give a shout out to Norma, who made a special effort to get down here for this ribbon cutting today, and Sue Hafkemeyer, and the committee members. Greater Dubuque has been working day in and day out to improve our community through workforce and, development and business retention and expansion projects. Greater Dubuque's new initiative to find Dubuque's true north will build on the investment that our community has made in the Bee Branch. Greater Dubuque President and CEO Rick Dickinson is here to tell us more. Rick?
Following our last speaker reminds me of that baseball adage, nobody likes to follow Babe Ruth. Nobody likes to follow the Dolph. Thanks for the gift you give to this community day in and day out, Gary. Let's give him a hand, please. Over time, the rains have moved mountains. Over time, glaciers have transformed continents. But for time immemorial, for communities, for cities like Dubuque, time changes nothing. People with courage and initiative change things. People like our mayor, people like our council, people like the city manager and his staff, but most importantly, people like the forward-thinking citizens of Dubuque. And think of what they've accomplished just in the last 15 plus years. The Port of Dubuque, downtown restoration, the Millwork District, the Dubuque Industrial Center West, the Dubuque Industrial Center South, the Dubuque Technology Park, the private sector development of Steeple Square, and now this beautiful addition to our community called the Bee Branch. But let's face it, folks, the B stands for beauty. Let's give them a hand for the work that they've done. On behalf of the Board of Directors, the investors, and the staff at Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, we want to thank the citizens of Dubuque for this tremendous investment in your future. We pledge to you that in our efforts to find Dubuque's true north, to make sure that there's economic prosperity for every citizen of our community, we will try to build upon this tremendous investment for all of our sakes. The good news is, I'm your last speaker. Better news is, this is as bad as it's going to get. Years from now, as you bring your family on these promenades on either side of the branch, you will say to yourselves, I was there in July of 2017, and you wouldn't believe what wasn't there. You wouldn't believe the families that have returned to the north end of Dubuque to have that middle-class house that they can now afford. You wouldn't believe the quality of the schools that we have here today. You wouldn't believe the families that flocked to the north end of Dubuque just as they did generations past, thanks to the investments that you have made. Remember, time changes nothing. People with courage and initiative change things. People of Dubuque. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Rick, for your incredible leadership over 20 years and that of your colleagues. I want to again thank all of you for joining us today, and I encourage you to read the back of your program for a complete list of the individuals involved in making this project happen. And by the way, as Joyce alluded to earlier, I have some additional good news to share that we were notified early this afternoon, as she said, that the City of Dubuque has been awarded $508,000 to the U.S. Department of Interior's Outdoor Recreation Legacy Partnership Program, which assists with projects to plan, build, and enhance parks and other outdoor recreation facilities in underserved communities. Dubuque was one of 22 cities in 17 states to receive this funding. The city funds will cover 50% of the costs planned for improvements to Comiskey Park, which is connected to the Bee Branch Greenway and located just across 24th Street. The improvements are part of the implementation of the Comiskey Park Master Plan. Now on to our ribbon cutting, and we want all to be a part of it. So please stay seated or standing where you are so you'll be in the photo, and I invite my council colleagues, city staff, and all the speakers to join me in holding the banner that will be our ribbon. And we'd like to have all the staff and contractors that work on the project to fill in as well. And we're going to cut the ribbon right behind me here on the Riverwalk. So anyone there that wants to get closer, fill in the amphitheater, we'll do that as soon as everyone gets into place. Thank you.